Hi friends, Krista here. Thank you for stopping by Books and Jams. Today we're going to talk about my TBR for the month of January. I am someone who does love a monthly TBR. It does become a pile of possibilities because I hold the TBR very lightly. I am not glued to these choices. But here are a pile of books that are on my radar for the month of January for different reasons, and I will tell you those reasons as we go along. I do like a TBR. I like there to be a little variety in the type of book so that I can kind of mood read throughout the month. And I get overwhelmed when I look at these shelves and say, pick the next book. So choosing a TBR for me is a way to kind of minimize the options and still read a bunch from my shelves. I do have a couple of library books in this pile. And because it's January, I'm excited about the reading goals that I set for the year, which I haven't yet shared with you, but I will, don't worry. And so some of these books match those goals and will kind of give me a jump start onto achieving them. So first of all, I have a pile of 4 books that will be definitely read, and then the rest are kind of options. So let's start with the 4 definites for January. So the first one is These Silent Woods by Kimmy Cunningham Grant. This is my Patreon book club book for the month of January. Every month I give my patrons 3 choices and they choose which one they want to read, and this is the one that won by a pretty decent percentage. In this book, we follow a young woman and her dad who have lived isolated in the woods for many years. And as the girl gets older, she starts to wonder, why are they still living this way? She doesn't quite love it anymore. And she starts to want out. But Cooper, the dad, has some secrets, and we start to learn about why they are out in the woods. Why are they living this isolated life? He has some things he doesn't want his daughter to know. And I've heard very, very good things about this. And so I'm very hopeful that we enjoy it. But I love the little wintry scene on the front. I feel like this will be a good winter read. Another book that I will definitely be reading in January is The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks by Rebecca Skloot. I will be reading this with Nikki from Red Dot Reads and Mitzi from Mitzi Reads and Writes. And I'm really excited to read with them. I've read with Nikki before, but I don't think I've done a buddy read with Mitzi before. This is a nonfiction about Henrietta Lacks, who is a woman whose cells were taken without her knowledge. And those cells were used to make some giant strides in science, in health and in the medical field. And Henrietta and her family were never compensated and were not really told at the beginning that that's what was happening. And so it kind of takes apart that whole thing. I've heard really, really good things about this. So I'm looking forward to reading this one with Nikki and Mitzi. Then a couple of friends of mine are doing Flannery January, and I'm not really participating much in the readathon itself, but I guess I am because I have some short stories here by Flannery O'Connor. I have a goal of reading a bunch of short stories in the new year. So this is going to kick that off by reading at least 4. I would like to at least start with 1 a week, possibly more. There are a whole bunch in here. So I'm going to start my short story goal by reading short stories by Flannery O'Connor and thus participating in Flannery January. With, I know Christy Lewis, Dostoevsky in Space, and Tiffany from Beautiful Minutia are 2 of the hosts. I believe there are others as well. I will link their announcements down below so that you can check it out if you're interested in reading some Flannery O'Connor. I know there's a group read and some other things, but I am going to be reading some short stories by her. And then the 4th book that I'll be reading in the month of January is a book of poetry called Muses from the Moon by W. Scott. This is published by Owl's Nest Publishers, who are a relatively new publishing house that produces middle grade and teen books. So this is a faith-based collection of poems geared towards teens and older middle grade, I believe. So I'm looking forward to reading this and letting you know about it. This is going to be released in January, so I will probably try to read this early on in the month and let you know about it. But I will also link Owl's Nest Publishing down below as well. Then we have some other options. So you're getting kind of a sneak peek into my goals for the year because I'm going to tell you about them now. But one of them is to read some of my Newbery books and some of my Christmas books. So this is knocking out 2 of those. Dead End in Norvelt by Jack Gantos was a Christmas book exchange book from 2 years ago, and it is a Newbery winner. You can see the Newbery medal on there. It's also a Scott Odell Award winner. This one takes place over the course of 2 months, like a vacation, summer vacation maybe. And a young boy, Jack, gets grounded by his parents, and he ends up having to help his elderly neighbor, a feisty old neighbor with an unusual activity involving the newly dead and long departed, a motorcycle gang and a man on a trike, as well as twisted promises and possibly murder. So it's supposed to be quirky and funny. I'm not sure what I'll think about it, but it will go towards 2 goals in one book, which is always a good thing. I have a goal of finishing some series in the new year. So one of the books that will complete a trilogy for me is The Winter House Mysteries by Ben Gooderson. I don't remember if there is a 4th one, but this is the 3rd and last one that I have on my shelves. These do take place in the wintertime, which is nice. In the first book, we follow Elizabeth, who is dropped off at Winter House, which is a big old hotel, by her relatives, and has to solve some mysteries, and there are puzzles involved, and she meets her best friend there. And it's a little bit darker than I was expecting in the first book, but I do love the puzzles and the wordplay and the people that she meets at Winter House. And then book 2, she goes back to Winter House Hotel. And then this is book 3, which is continuing on the story from the first 2 books. I do like to listen to this series on audio because the audio is great, but I like to follow along in the book, or just kind of, because there are some fantastic illustrations throughout that really add to the story. So it's definitely one that I like to read in tandem in print and audio together. Another series that I just started in December was Frostheart by Jamie Littler, and I picked up book 2 and book 3 from the library because I really enjoyed the first one. So I would like to continue with this series as well. These are kind of chunkier than the first one was, but it is middle grade and it does go by pretty quickly. So hopefully I can continue to make progress in that series. And then I also want to continue to increase my NetGalley score. It's one of my goals for the year. And so The Boy with the Bookstore is just a rom-com. There's a baker girl whose shop is right next to a boy who owns a bookstore. And there are some rent issues with their block of stores. And these two have to kind of combine for a time being while there's construction or something going on. I don't really remember, but it does sound cute. It is on my NetGalley, so it would work towards increasing that NetGalley score, and it's a little bit different from the other things in this pile, so that could be a fun addition to my January reads. And then the final stack of 3 that I have are just ones that have a wintry, snowy feel to them. And January is definitely the month for that here in Virginia, where I live. We don't get a ton of snow and ice, but if we're going to get it, it's probably going to be in January, maybe beginning of February. So I just chose 3 that are very wintry. This first one is another middle grade called North Child by Edith Patou. I don't really know anything about this. Rose was born facing north, and the old stories say she will venture far from home and embark on a dangerous journey. Making a pact with an enormous white bear, Rose travels on his back to a mysterious castle that holds a dark enchantment, a darker temptation, and the key to her true destiny. So I don't know if this is a fairy tale retelling. All I know is that it's stunning and it's very wintry, obviously. And then I have Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik, which is a fairy tale retelling the story of Rumpelstiltskin. So we follow Miriam. She's the daughter of moneylenders, but her father has a problem collecting his debts. Until Miriam takes matters into her own hands, hardening her heart, the young woman sets out to claim what is owed and soon gains a reputation for being able to turn silver into gold. And then an ill-advised boast draws the attention of the king, grim fey creatures who become more ice than flesh. Miriam's fate and that of 2 kingdoms will be forever altered. So it kind of is a Rumpelstiltskin type retelling. I read Uprooted by her way long ago and never picked this one up. So I'm looking forward to reading Spinning Silver. And finally, on this pile, we have The Life We Bury by Alan Eskins. Lindsay from Lindsay's Little Library got me turned on to this book. She absolutely loved it. And so I really want to read it. We follow Joe Talbert, who is a college student on an assignment for one of his classes. His task is to interview a stranger and then write a brief biography. So he heads to a nearby nursing home to find a willing subject. He meets Carl, a dying Vietnam vet and a convicted murderer. And so the man that he gets to know is very different in his mind from this story that he's hearing about his life. And so he has to kind of figure out how it all fits together, is what is real, what's true and what's not true. Thread by thread, Joe unravels the tapestry of Carl's conviction, but as he and Lila dig deeper into the circumstances of the crime, the stakes grow higher. Will Joe discover the truth before it's too late to escape the fallout? So I don't even know what kind of book this is. Is it a thriller? Is it a mystery? Is it historical? I think it's going to be a little bit of all of that, but it definitely has a nice wintry cover. And so I'm excited to finally give that a go. Lindsay has raved about it enough to convince me I need to read it. So there are 12 in this stack, which realistically I could read, especially because a handful of them are middle grade, which are usually quicker, even though some of them are a bit chunkamunka. But we have a mystery, we have kind of a thriller mystery, literary, some nonfiction, some short stories, a book of poetry, a lot of middle grade in here, a rom-com. So I feel like this is a very tall stack, but also a very achievable stack to get to most of them, if not all, plus maybe a handful of others that I find. Who knows? I would love to hear, what are you starting your year out with in January? Do you have some goals that you're going to knock right out at the beginning of the year or just jump into? I know there are some readathons happening in the month of January. We will see if I can make any of these fit into some of those readathons. I know one of them that I heard about is called Just Jumpstart January, where you do just start working on your goals right away. And I'm definitely doing that. So maybe we'll say that's the readathon I'm participating in, but we shall see. I love chatting with you in the comments. So let's talk down there about any of these books that you see here today, or any of the books that you're going to plan on reading in January, or anything else you want to talk about. I look forward to talking with you down there. Thank you so much for watching. It means the world to me to have your support for this channel. I'm excited for a new year, another year of chatting with you about books and reading some great books. And I appreciate you watching, and I look forward to talking with you in another video very soon. Bye.